All right, so I finished spraying the console last night and just wheeled it back over to my main shop. And so I'm gonna do some wet sanding and buffing on this, but because the paint was shot last night, the paint's really soft, so it's gonna be really easy to take out any of the dust nibs, knock down any of the light orange peel. So it laid down pretty good, especially on the edges. Everything looks smooth. Have a couple little small runs which are really hard to see, so I'm just going to try to knock those down real quick. So I'm going to start on the Aero DA. So I'm going to start with 1500 grit wet, and I put the interface pad on the DA, so that puts a cushion between the sandpaper and the sanding pad, and that makes it so that you can sand on here, and having the cushion in between make it harder for you to sand through on the edges. I put down quite a bit of paint, so I'm really not worried about that. So I'm just going to take the 1500 to take off most of the small little dust nibs, and then where there's heavier orange peel, I'll probably switch this to 1200 and then maybe 1000 just to cut through some of that a little bit faster. But it's always safer to stay with 1500 or stay with a higher grit, because once you start going to a lower grit, then you run the risk of burning through the paint, and it's harder to polish it back to gloss. Obviously, the deeper the sand scratches are, the harder it is to polish it back out. So always start higher and then go lower if you need to. All right, so the next step is going to be cutting the 1500 sand scratch marks. So I got this this medium cut foam pad from Harbor Freight. So I'm not sponsored by Harbor Freight, but I have a Harbor Freight charge card. So when I need stuff, 6 months interest free. It's nice for a small business. That card's maxed out, by the way. So this is a medium cut, and these are designed to go on a DA sander. So typically when you're doing a cut and buff, you would use an orbital type sander, but because I sprayed this paint last night, it's still pretty soft. So I was able to knock down pretty much all of the orange peel with the 1500 on the interface pad, no problems. I had to use the 1200 to knock down some small drips, but mostly right now it's 1500 grit scratches on that. So I'm going to use this Meguiar's Pro Speed compound. So this will remove 1200 grit and finer. So anything above 1200, this will remove on this pad first. So this has an interface on it. So I'm just gonna, well, not an interface, but a hook and loop. We're not gonna need the interface pad because this is soft by itself. So we're just gonna stick that to the DA. We're gonna start with that first, and then we're gonna switch to a lighter grit foam, and we're going to go with the swirl free polish for the last step. All right, so I did the DA sander with the medium cut foam disc, and it worked pretty good. If I put a lot of pressure on the DA with this pad, I got it pretty close, but I still had you could still see some hazing from the sand scratch mark. So I switched over to my 5-inch DeWalt orbital sander. So this is a nice handy tool, especially for something like this, because I'm trying to polish this console and it's sitting on the base with the casters. So if I had my big DeWalt, I think it's a 7-inch polisher, that's a heavy machine that you have to hold with 2 hands and put a lot of pressure against the piece that you're polishing. And because it's on wheels, I'm just going to be pushing it across the parking lot. So this is nice. I can't swap this out. This is a 5-inch pad, but I could put a 6-inch pad on here and make it fit a little bit better. But this 6-inch foam pad on the 5-inch DeWalt works really good. So these are really, really handy. I use this quite a bit. These are like 90 bucks at Home Depot and Lowe's.